What is up, you guys? It's Dom here from JoJo Productions, and today we're talking about the Panasonic GH5S and using it for wedding filmmaking.
Love is in the air tonight. Love is everywhere tonight. Moving through my heart like the wind. I come alive as I breathe it in. Love is in the air. Love is in the air tonight. Tonight. Love is in the air. Love is in the air tonight.
So this is it. This is the Panasonic GH5S, and this, I think, is a fantastic choice for wedding filmmakers. And today we're going to talk about some things that I like about this and a couple things that I've found to be kind of an issue. Not really, though. You'll see what I mean. Number one, first thing that I love about this camera when it comes to wedding filmmaking is just the weight and the form factor of this camera. When I'm doing weddings and I'm carrying a camera around all day, I don't necessarily want a big, bulky camera, especially for video stuff. If I'm doing photos, I don't mind as much. But if I'm doing video stuff, I generally don't want a big, bulky camera because 95% of the time, it's going to be on my gimbal. And the gimbal adds, extra weight. And if we can keep this whole setup as light as we can, it's going to give me a better shooting experience. And yeah, I'm just not gonna put the camera down as much and miss moments. So having a nice light camera like this is really great. If I want to go handheld, I can just go handheld like this, and just do my thing. And it all feels really great. The stabilization when holding it like this is, in fact, really, really nice, and it fits in the hand really nicely. So yeah, no, I think that the size and the weight is a very, very big important thing when you're doing wedding filmmaking or even just photography, because you don't want to get fatigued and you don't want your equipment to hold you back. Second fantastic thing that I absolutely love about this camera is, yes, battery life. Battery life from my GH5S is actually exceptionally good. I can get by on a whole wedding day with just two of these, and I do have two of these, and I'm just fine. Especially if I'm shooting 1080p, which most of the time I do shoot 1080p because most people don't notice the difference between 4K and 1080p. You can't see it here anyway because the 1080p that comes out of this camera is in fact really, really sharp. But because I'm working with a wedding production company here, I think I'm gonna up my game and just start shooting in 4K for everything. And we'll get more into the 4K and that kind of stuff later. But yeah, so battery life, I think, is absolutely phenomenal. Again, this is another thing that you don't want to have slow you down. Battery life is so important on a wedding day. The more you can shoot without having to stop, change batteries, change lenses, all that kind of stuff, it's just going to make for a better day, and you're going to capture more important moments. So the fact that I can get away on just two batteries is really, really nice, because my other SLR cameras that I would use before this, geez, battery life lasted maybe 45 minutes at that. So not very good. So this is a huge upgrade. Like I said, again, very nice to have a battery that just lasts and you don't really have to worry about. I have to check on my battery. I don't know, I check on it every hour and a half or so just to make sure. But for the most part, like I said, battery life on this thing is really, really nice. Two batteries, that's it. But if you are shooting a lot of 4K or slow motion, that kind of stuff, it probably will drain the battery just a little faster. So do keep that in mind. But other than that, battery life is beast mode on this camera. Another really just amazing feature is the fact of the SD card port. Man, when you are shooting a wedding, you you don't want to accidentally lose everything that you got from the day. That would be a big problem, especially for your business, especially for the bride and the groom, obviously. But having 2 SD card ports is so nice. Having that extra backup, having that insurance really, really is nice. It kind of puts me at ease, and I can just shoot knowing that if something does go wrong, I will have that backup. Now, I'm not saying that this has happened to me. Hasn't happened yet. I have heard stories, but it hasn't happened to me yet. So we're hoping for the best. But having that extra backup is a really, really, really nice thing. And if you are doing weddings, whether it is photography or videography, it doesn't matter. Having a camera with 2 card slots, I think, is a must. So GH5S is a godsend for having 2 card slots. Also, the GH5, the original, does have 2 card slots as well. All right, another great feature about my GH5S and the GH5 and really just all the Panasonic cameras is the swivel screen. The swivel screen from these Panasonic cameras are so nice. They're so sharp. They are so bright that even in most cases, when it comes to like high noon shooting, when it's really, really bright outside, I can still see my image just fine. Like, it's very, very nice. Now, there are times where it's just super bright, super harsh, no shade or anything like that. And then the screen does tend to get a little washed out, if you will. But for the most part, this screen does really well for bright environments. So I'm very impressed with that. Another great thing is the fact that it swivels like this. I love that because it, well, just lets me be a little bit lighter and a little bit more faster than having a fixed screen. Because if I had a fixed screen, I'd have to hook up a monitor, and that would just add more weight, more batteries, more things to worry about. So having this, I think, is just, it really is a huge thing, and it's very, very nice having that. So if you can get a camera with a swivel screen for video, as you probably know, it's definitely recommended. Let's get into the image quality thing. Image quality from this thing is absolutely, of course, the most important thing. That's why it's probably number 1 on this list. Number 1 thing, of course, like I just said, image quality. Man, the 4K that comes out of this is so sharp, so nice, looks so good. But same with the 1080p. I did a comparison between 4K and 1080p, and honestly, I really couldn't notice a difference. Now, where you are going to notice a difference, though, is if you want to start cropping or doing like digital zooms and pans and stuff like that, that's when the 4K does come in really nicely, and it does help out a lot. But that's not saying that the 1080p from this is not sharp, because it is. And for the most part, I do like to shoot in 1080p. It definitely saves on storage. But yeah, I'll probably just be shooting 4K for the most part and from now on. So because the 4K is absolutely great from this. Another little hidden thing that actually a lot of people are recently talking about is actually the, what is it, like the 4K crop mode that you can do on this. You can punch in just a little extra. I haven't used it yet because I do have really nice telephoto lenses, but I can see where it would come in really handy if I'm just shooting on like a 35 and I quickly just wanted to punch in just a little more to around that 50 millimeter range. I could do that. Or if I'm shooting on my 50, I could probably, you know, punch in just a little bit more to that 70 or 85 millimeter look. So that's really nice about that as well, is having, well, basically 2 lenses in one. Another great thing that I love about this is that it has 4K 60 in the variable frame rate mode, which means it slows it down for you in the camera. That is so nice. It saves so many extra steps in post when I am editing and just trying to get this thing done and out to the client as quick as I can. So having that in variable frame rate mode is really nice. Now the GH5 did not have this. I don't think so. Last I looked, it didn't. Yeah, I don't think it did. But the GH5S has it, and it's really nice to shoot 4K 60 and have it all slowed down. It's just nice. Frame rates Man, this thing can shoot up to 240 frames per second in 1080p. Would I do it? Probably not. The image looks pretty soft when you get that high, so I definitely do not recommend it. But I can shoot up to at least 120 frames. 180 frames per second usually looks pretty good from the GH5S. And for me, that's really just more than I'll ever really need. The most I've ever used was 120 frames per second, and man, it looked really good. For the most part, when it comes to just, like couples time or working with the bridal party or the groomsmen or getting ready stuff, I generally will shoot that in 4K 60, or sometimes for the getting ready stuff, there's a lot of good audio. I'll shoot that in 4K 24. So just having a really nice selection of frame rates is just a really great thing to have. So now let's talk about a couple of downsides when it comes to this camera. You probably guessed the first one. It doesn't have image stabilization. But for me, I don't care because I'm using stabilization equipment. I do have my Zhiyun Crane 3S that I use, and I usually have that. It's usually on that, or I'm just putting it on a tripod. But if you are kind of the person who likes to just, go handheld, then this probably isn't for you. I would probably just get the original GH5. Another small downside when it comes to, having more things to worry about, I guess, is my lens choice. I am using the speed booster route. I haven't really had any issues yet. I like using my Nikon lenses because I have a whole bunch of them. But, it is one more thing that could go wrong. You could have like a connection failure or something like that. But I luckily don't have the electronic one because, then you really could be in big trouble if like the aperture ring doesn't work or something like that. And then the lens just doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So having the manual one is kind of nice. So all I have to do is just, just that. So that is, I guess, okay. Now, I like the speed booster route because it does give me a wider field of view, which is great. This gives me a little less than I guess it's just a little bit bigger than an APS-C sensor. Which is great. And it also gives me an extra stop of light, so that enhances the low light mode on this even more, which is a great segue into the next feature that I love about this, the low light performance. My goodness, yes, this is really the biggest reason that I got this camera in the first place. When I was shooting on the GH5 or something like my standard DSLR, like my 7200, my D7200, or even my G7, one thing that I just hated was the low light performance. Now, when I got the GH5 to use for a while, I was like, oh, well, it shouldn't be too bad. But I also kind of knew that the GH5 didn't do too well in low light. But I was like, I have the speed booster, I should be fine. I wasn't. I still would not shoot that camera above 1600 ISO to get a really good image. This is where the GH5S comes in and says, well, don't worry about that anymore, because I can shoot up to 10,000 ISO and still have a pretty good usable image. I've done it multiple times, and to me, the image looks great. So low light stuff, I'm not worried anymore. Seriously, I am not worried about low light stuff anymore. If it gets to the point where 10,000 ISO plus speed booster plus really fast lens is still not getting the image, I have lights that I'll bring in. Seriously. So, but for the most part, in an area where I don't have a bunch of lighting or can't bring in lighting or anything like that, this is really nice to have the really good low light performance. So there you guys go. That is the GH5S for wedding filmmakers. I love this camera. If you are just stuck on like needing more frame rates, better low light, or you want 4K, man, this thing is it. This is all of that in one package. So I absolutely love this camera, and this will probably be my go-to wedding camera for years, because really this is all I need. It has great 4K, low light, nice frame rates. Yeah, no, I think that this is an absolute fantastic camera. So if you enjoyed this video, please do give it a big thumbs up. If you loved it, subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to get to those. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.